I want to catch up with Andrew Gee again, who's the Minister for Defence Personnel and Veterans Affairs, joining us live from Canberra. Thanks for joining us, Minister. First up, I want to ask you that when you heard the Secretary of State Blinken list off all those countries he'd consulted, NATO allies and others, about what's happening in Afghanistan now and in the future, did you take it as a slight that he didn't even mention Australia, that Australia had not been part of those consultations, given the role we've played there over 20 years and the 41 lives that we've sacrificed?
Look, I think that it would have been preferable had Australia been mentioned, but we know what we did there. We worked very closely with our US allies on the ground. Everyone who was on the ground knows the cooperation and the bonds that were formed there. I think his words don't mean as much as the actions on the ground over 20 years working with our allies. So I don't think our veterans should take too much from any of that, but it's the men and women on the ground and what they went through together that counts. And our bonds with our US allies are stronger than ever because they were forged in that very, very difficult place of Afghanistan under extraordinarily difficult and dangerous circumstances.
We've seen an astonishing amount of military hardware that was left behind by the Americans. Has Australia left any military equipment behind?
I'm not aware that we have, but I have to say I've seen those numbers and it is staggering, the amount of hardware which has been left there. I was very, very surprised, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen to it. So I'm hopeful that maybe something can be done about it, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, there are more people in Afghanistan that Australia would like to have got out. Obviously, you won't give up on any attempts to get them out, although that's going to be an incredibly difficult situation. Are any of those people actually Australian citizens?
Yeah, my understanding is that there are still Australians in Afghanistan and Kabul. Not all of them actually want to leave. That's my information, but certainly I believe that there would still be Australians there. We're just trying to work out how many. You've also got Afghan nationals who are visa holders, and then you've also got those folks there who were part processed through the visa process when that murderous atrocity occurred at Kabul airport. That whole airlift essentially came to a close. So at the moment, the feedback on the ground is that DFAT and Home Affairs are still working with those people who are very grateful for the help that we're giving them to try to get them the necessary documents. And then, of course, the big issue is how we actually get them out of there, whether it's through commercial airlines that I'm hoping may be able to start up, but we don't know, whether it's through the formation of a safe zone, which our allies and I are pushing for, or whether it's people just making their own arrangements and using their own judgment about getting out. But there are people living in fear in Kabul at the moment. There's people in hiding. There are people moving around to avoid the Taliban. And there are stories of the Taliban that I have heard of, the so-called taking of wives, which is not really what it is at all. It's just criminal behaviour. It's taking people into slavery to commit crimes and sexual assault. So
indeed, so the Americans are saying that are saying we have to sort of deal with the Taliban and hope that they'll let people leave. That's not practical, is it? We can't expect those Australians in Afghanistan to entrust their future to the Taliban to fly out on commercial flights. That's the triumph of hope over experience, isn't it?
Well, look, no doubt that is the hope, but I think practically on the ground, people are also working out their own arrangements and what they can do. And I think for folks at home, they should just know that the work of Australia is continuing, and the feedback that I'm getting from indirectly from people on the ground is that Australian authorities are in contact with them and we are trying our best to help, and they are taking comfort from that, because what these people want to know is if they are able to get out somehow, that they have the necessary documents. And I know that the Australian agencies are working really hard to do all of the checking and get all of the documents and visas in place for more people who were perhaps on our list that just couldn't get out given what happened in Kabul. So this is going to be an ongoing effort. And
it is, it's a shocking situation. Just before I let you go, can you give us a plug for Legacy Week?
Legacy Week is this week. It started, Chris, and ordinarily at this time of the year, we'd have our ADF, our students, our cadets out. I can remember as a primary school student selling legacy badges.
Indeed, likewise.
Obviously, lockdown has put a real dampener on our ability to do that around Australia. So what you can do at home, folks, is you can go to legacy.com.au. You can still buy a legacy badge. There's a range of legacy merchandise. In fact, Chris, we've got these very cute legacy teddies. I'm just showing you there. And there's one for every branch of service. And so there's Air Force legacy teddy. There's Navy legacy teddy there.
All right, get onto that website and buy some stuff and donate.
Legacy.com.au.
Indeed, legacy.com.au.
Help the people who are helping the family. Sorry, Chris. Help the organisation which is helping the families and dependents of veterans and those who've served and sacrificed so much for our nation. They deserve it.
Yes, indeed. I underline that message wholeheartedly. Thanks for joining us, Minister.
Thanks for having me on the show, Chris.